This video covers stem files and one of the most important aspects of production for music licensing, inspection steps. All right, we're looking right now at the drum stem files and we're just playing it to test them out. Here you can hear it in the background. So before exporting your stem files, it's good to carefully go through them with headphones from beginning to end and listen for any pops, clicks, hum, buzz, distortion, etc. Here is the bass stem file. Now you notice on the bass stem file, you'll see on the bass track down here, you'll notice from an earlier video, we put a compressor on here with some sidechain compressing there. And the sidechain compressor is being activated by a ghost kick track. Called a ghost kick track because it's not, you can't hear this kick track. It says kick to SC there, which means kick to sidechain. It's being routed directly to the bass compressor. So when making this stem file, anything that has sidechaining in it, you know, I always opt to use ghost tracks to sidechain things for this purpose, for music licensing. So that when you make your stem file, you don't get caught up with having drums actually sounding in your bass track. So you can see right here the downward pumping on that compressor, the light that's going down, that's the kick drum ghost track that's pushing the volume down through the compressor on that bass track just momentarily as each kick hits. And that's so that you can clearly hear the kick and it's not so muddy when you hear the bass and the kick together. But when that bass stem file gets made, you have to activate that kick track. So here I'll turn it on and off. You can see what happens. That's on. And that's off. You see right there where the kick was no longer activating that compressor. So that's very, very important for licensing when you're using side chaining. All right, next we're going to take a look at the guitar stem file. So we're listening to that. Very nice guitar work, by the way, by Ron Kempton, one of my top students. Great songwriter and guitarist. It's the end of the song. Okay. Now we're going to go to strings and pads. And when we talk about stem files, there's decisions that have to be made because there's no standard in the industry for what a stem file actually is. Like, in other words, different companies ask for different breakdowns of stem files. All right, this is something typical for something like A&E or TV show that we're doing here. So it's strings/pads, but you'll notice there's not only strings in here, but French horns. And that's just a decision that you have to make. It's the closest category in all the stem files. You know, in other words, it wouldn't go in keyboards, it wouldn't go in drums, it wouldn't go in bass. So that French horns is closest to a synth or to strings and a pad. So you have to carefully listen to this. And you know, these arrangements that you make, like let's say you're doing some orchestration, it's a nice added bonus if the orchestration kind of works on its own. So, you know, I tend to make my orchestrations work as little compositions in themselves, even without the rest of the song, so that they can be utilized by the end user, because sometimes they'll say, wow, at the end of this scene, I just love this orchestra. Let's just use that stem. That happens sometimes. And that's one of the purposes of why we're even making these stems. It's the ability of the end user to utilize anything that you've done musically to their liking, if they need to customize something. By the way, this Steinway B piano, it's a, oh, that's a different track there. Let's get this track up here, highlight this. Steinway B piano, this is an East-West Quantum Leap product, and this is the same piano that Hans Zimmer uses. And I love this piano. It's got a great sound. It's created by sampling an actual, $80,000 Steinway B. Gotta love it. Okay, good. So now we're going to go to the next stem. That was piano/synth. We didn't have any synth, so it's just piano. And now the lead vocal stem. And this process that you're watching right now is, exactly what I do before I export these. And what I did, prior to even making this video, let's take a listen to it here for a second. Love is a stranger, everyone sees as special to themselves. All right, good. What I did prior to this video was I went from beginning to end and carefully listened to each of these breakdowns, listening for any editing problems, pops, clicks, as I said, buzz, hum. And so it's not just listening to the entire track for those things, because sometimes they can be hidden within a stem, and it's covered up by a snare drum hit or something. But then when you go to the vocal track, there's a pop or a click in there. And again, these stems can be used by the end user. Here's background vocals. They may take one of these stems and build an entire production around it. And let's say they're going to do a solo violin and your vocal track, and you've got pops and clicks from edits all over it. Well, they won't be coming back to you for more work. So music production for licensing is really dependent upon attention to detail. And it just takes patience, and it takes the time to listen through. And, I think it's a universal thing for people to say, all right, well, let's see, I listen to 75% of it, so this is fine. Because, it can be tedious, it can be boring, it can be, really rack up the old patience. Okay, so we're looking again at each of these stem file groupings here. There's percussion, drums, bass, guitar, strings and pads, piano, synth, lead vocal, background vocal. You can export them one at a time by just hitting solo, or on some DAWs, and most of them are being built this way exactly for this reason, because stems are so in demand now. This one in Cubase is called the channel batch export, where you can just click that and then check off whichever ones you'd like, plural, whatever stem files you'd like. There they all are. And then I could just hit export once and boom, they're all created at the same time. Okay, now, this is something very important. Here's a little secret behind successful producers and engineers who work with licensing. This is a project which is a test project, and this will actually be part of your homework. I'm going to be sending you these stem files that you're looking at right now. What I did was I created a project, and then you see the stems there, and I just imported these into the project. FM, by the way, is for mastering. That designates my full mix for mastering. Okay, so here's the percussion, drums, the bass, guitar, strings, piano, lead vocal, background. They're all the same colors. It's all organized. And now I'm going to be testing the full mix and compare it to all the composite stems, and it should sound exactly the same as I hit play. There's the full mix. Now I muted the full mix and I'm listening to the stems. So as I'm clicking back and forth, it should sound exactly the same. So listen as I do it.
I can't teach you love's degree or help you find yourself.
So far, so good.
Love is a stranger everyone sees as special
Now,
to themselves.
when I started out, I would do this maybe up to here, then I'd stop and say, yeah, it's fine.
Won't change things.
But this again is
Make you someone
a discipline that I would really like to
all I can
promote and really encourage you to get into, which is just be very thorough, attention to detail. So I'm listening here for anything while I go back and forth, any differences.
when you're riding by yourself. Long way to the moon, my friend, when you're riding by yourself.
And I'll normally do this with headphones on at a low volume. High volume headphones, no bueno. Gonna ruin your ears.
Wasted on the things
And I try not to mix with headphones, but I definitely do this inspection step with headphones.
can serve what you ask for. With love, I just can't tell. I see people love
And what I find, is I find that
where they
people will mix intensely with passion. And then they'll do this inspection step and just
when you're riding.
kind of brush it off and not spend the time like this is where you have to be just vigilant and very, very observant and listen very closely.
Love doesn't seem
Your music supervisor, your editor, your publisher, whoever it is on the other end, that's the technical guy that's going to get your product. Believe me,
with grace.
especially when you start out with a company, they're going to go over your stuff with a fine-tooth comb. So yours better be even finer. Now here's another way that you can actually test these. You can mute groups at a time.
There's not much more
So I muted
now.
all the stems.
I've told you
Now I muted the
that I know
full mix.
no potion.
Now I muted the stems. Although sometimes you get a little glitch. Listen,
It's a long
hear that?
way to the moon,
So it's not
when you're
as good.
by yourself.
Just another way that you could do it, but I don't recommend it. I recommend this way here that we've been doing, just by soloing and muting.
Riding by yourself. Riding by yourself.
Good, orchestra sounds the same. Piano. Ooh, I heard a click right at the end there. And actually, I don't think it was a pop or a click. It was just the attack. Listen to this. Of the acoustic guitar. Hear that? Just right on that last little bram. So that right there would be a flunk. That would be no pass on this track. Okay, so now what I do is I go in and listen to each individual stem. And I did this prior. I'll listen all the way through on each stem. I'm just showing you how to do it here. And, I'll double them up sometimes and listen to sections. But I'll listen all the way through the song on each stem.
As special to themselves.
You'll see I skip down to vocals because right here, strings and pads and piano have no sound. Here, I'll raise that so you can see it.
I'll make you someone else. All I can tell you.
Here come strings and pads. There you go. I mean, for this video, I'm skipping around, but I would listen all the way through. And you're actually listening for not just pops and clicks and hum and buzz. You're listening for the musicality also. Like if something pops out all of a sudden and sounds weird, with your arrangement. background vocals there. So I can't overstate the importance of being the inspector, inspecting your files, inspecting them with the attitude that you want to find something. Here's the thing, I've been teaching this for so long, and when students first start doing this, I'm like, did you inspect these? Yeah, I inspected them. Did you find anything? No, yeah, they're good. They're good. They're good. Did you listen all the way through? And this is after really explaining it to them. And I find, at first they didn't listen all the way through. And even if they did, and they heard something, they're like, I don't think anybody else is going to hear that. Oh, now look at this. This is interesting.
I can't teach you love to breathe.
Here's another flunk. My mix is leaning to one side.
Love is a stranger, every
I'm guessing that's probably guitar,
to themselves.
because I know I've got them left and right. All right, so now I went back in the mix and I found out that, how it was leaning to one side a little bit, to the right side? It was obviously in the full mix, and the bass track, that particular bass virtual instrument, was leaning to one side, as well as the guitar. So now here's why the marker track is so key in your mix. Remember how we have the marker track? I was able to go back and just redo the full mix for mastering right there. And then I was able to redo the guitar stem and redo the bass stem and leave everything else alone. Here I'm bringing in the new tracks. So there's the new full mix. I didn't have to redo the drums, didn't have to redo the strings, the piano, the lead vocal, the background vocal stems. This is very important for your workflow and for working under pressure. And it allows you to really be the inspector, because you don't feel like, oh God, if I find a mistake, I got to redo everything. Because your marker track is exact, you'll be able to export from your mix where the tracks start exactly at the same point and end at the same point, so that you can continue this process. It's a process. Being the inspector is a process. Don't look at it as like, okay, I'm done. All right, it's fine. Let's go. Let's move it on. I'm all excited. That's an attitude that, doesn't pay off, especially for licensing. So now I'm testing out this new full mix that I did. Comparing it to this new set of stems that includes a new bass, which is more up center, and a new guitar, which is more up center.
You'll find yourself. Love is a stranger, everyone's
There it's balanced better.
special to themselves.
See it there? Yeah, it sounds better too.
Another round won't change things or make you someone else. All I can tell you is what I see while I'm drinking to your health.
Good.
It's a long way to the moon, my friend, when you're riding by yourself. A long way to the moon, my friend.
And by the way, you'll see that my levels are not very high on my mix. And you might be thinking, God, aren't you gonna, how could you turn that in? It looks so low. I turn in mixes like this all the time. And the last one I turned in to A&E was chosen as an example to the other composers for music production standards and quality.
Only you
So this whole thing about headroom and how much headroom and how high and how low it needs to be for a mastering engineer,
drink is
forget it. It just needs to sound good.
only you.
Oh, here, I think I heard something here.
Only
Listen to this.
there's nowhere to go. The drink is wasted on the things only you can know.
The drink is wasted on the things.
On the things.
Listen,
Drink is wasted on the things
you hear something in the background vocals right there?
you can know.
Listen carefully. Listen.
Where to go. The drink is wasted on the things only wasted on the things.
But when I listen to the stems only, when I mute this, I don't hear this kind of weird, strange trail on the background vocals. How that could happen, I don't know. Things happen when you're exporting mixes. You know, they can happen. I mean, the computer is processing thousands and thousands of pieces of information.
I see people love left, right,
So we're going forward from there,
where they fell.
listening. So getting back to the levels, you know, you can say, God, I can hardly see your wave files. That must sound terrible. It must be... No, don't go by what you see. Go by what you hear. You know, these editors and publishers and supervisors that I send my mixes to, they have never, ever once said to me, this mix is not loud enough. In fact, the mastering engineers, although, you know, they've been accepting my masters recently, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but, you know, whenever there's a mastering engineer that gets my stuff, they're like, they never send it back to me for anything. They're like, oh, good. Because they can pull it up, they can pull the volume up to where they want it and start mastering. But if it's up near the top and it's got some distortion or, you know, it's all jammed up near zero, you can run into problems. And most of it really is just like this fundamentals of recording. It's your mental outlook as you're mixing. And I've gone over it before, but it really bears repeating because it's not taught, which is this. If you just keep that mixing level about halfway up, you will be so comfortable and calm and be able to just create without feeling all like tense or any stress or anything like that. And your creativity will shine and your mixes will sound better. You'll be able to hear more accurately. You'll feel better. You won't get ear fatigue, which can come from just the stress. Okay, let's listen to that last note. Much better. Remember there was like a pop in there before? But there's this other thing we did find. It's back here around 41. Listen to this.
Drink is wasted on the things.
Yeah, just a weird thing. It was wasted on the things.
On the things.
It's almost like the background vocals are singing a different word. That's what it sounds like.
Wasted on the things.
But not in the stems.
On the things.
Hear that?
Drink is wasted on the things. The drink is wasted on the things. Only
Now.
is wasted on the things.
Yeah.
Only
So to me, okay, that's not a pass. You know, that one needs to be fixed. And so what I will fix, I'll probably go back and just fix the full mix because the drums are fine, bass, guitars fine, strings, piano, lead vocal. You know, it'll be the background and the full mix. So it'll only be two stems I need to fix. And again, that marker track is key.
when you're writing.
All right, so I fixed those two tracks, the full mix and the background vocals. And now we're listening to our new and improved
There's no place
package of stems and mix here.
There's nowhere to go.
Let's see how it sounds.
Drink is wasted on the things. Only
Nice and clean. Now let's check it with the stem files. Mute the full mix. See how that sounds, if it sounds the same.
is wasted on the things.
Yes,
Only
good. So I would give these stem files a pass and I would feel good about sending them on. And I'm glad you got to see this full session and the attention to detail necessary to create and inspect your stem files. Now, when I first started making stems, I got confused about a couple things, and let's clarify them in detail right now. A submission package would start like this. You'll put a track up on SoundCloud and you'll send a link to it. Most supervisors, publishers, etc. do not appreciate getting an MP3 or a WAV file as an attachment. Although, you know, with Gmail and some other emails, you can attach in a way where they don't have to download and they can play it. So just make sure, however you send the file that they're going to listen to, that file is done in such a way that they don't have to download it, that they can just hit a play button. Okay, that's number one. Number two, that file is a mastered version of your track. Okay, so it is a mastered full mix. And then you should have a mastered instrumental mix. Okay, so those two are actually mastered. And that mastered full mix might be asked for in the form of an MP3. So they may ask for the MP3 for you to send it as an attachment. So have an MP3 full mix mastered, an MP3 instrumental mastered, and an MP3 underscore mastered. The MP3 sometimes is asked for prior to them accepting or rejecting your track. So it's like that's your calling card. And that MP3 is never used. I've never seen a company use the MP3. They'll if they accept your track, they'll always ask for your WAV file. Now, creation of that MP3 is vital, like the quality of it. And you'll see in the upcoming Introduction to Mastering video exactly how to make an MP3 for licensing that will increase your odds of actually getting accepted. Now, here's the great news. Makes it very simple. As part of this course, you're going to be receiving from me a submission package with all these items in it that you can listen to and look and import into your studio at home and really get a full understanding of what you'll be submitting in order to increase your odds to get licensing deals. So that's the good news. When you send the stem files in a package, those are mixes. Now you may run into a company, I haven't yet, okay, because again, there's no standards, which is unfortunate, but you may run into a company that says they want stems of your mastered version. I've never done that. I've never been asked for it. It's never come up. I have my package of stem files exactly as you saw on the screen, which when we were testing, it's exactly it. We have the full mix. That's a mix, pre-mastered. Then you have all the stems that are based on that mix. Then you have another track, which is the underscore. And the underscore is, as we went over, the underscore is, it's like the full mix, but the solo voice, the lead vocal or the solo instrument is tucked down into your mix so that it can be used better for dialogue, like under dialogue. So it's not competing with people talking in a TV show or a movie. So let's go over that again, because this, to me, I really had to wrap my head around this. So you have a mastered version of your full mix, of your instrumental mix, and your underscore, because they may just use that flat out right there. Boom, that's all they need. That's all they want. That's what they're going to use. Then you have your full mix, not mastered, and all the stems, not mastered. And those should sound the same per the test that we did. And those really are the tracks needed. Now, there's one additional one I'll mention right now that does come up. It's come up for me a few times. It's called a TV mix. And don't confuse it with any of these other mixes. A TV mix is something that a singer could use. This is how it got its name. A singer could use that track and go on television and sing lead vocal, and everything, including the background vocals, would be on that track. I wouldn't worry about a TV mix because you'll be specifically asked for it. But if you need it, see with all these stems and stuff, it's easy to make. What you would do is you would pop out a mix of, like an instrumental, it would have no lead vocal, but if there were any background vocal on it, it would include the background vocal. So it would be all instruments and background vocal, then you master that, and that would be the TV mix. So these points are very, very important so that you're not confused and wondering, and what do I give a stem for? What's mixed? What's mastered? What's this? The reason they have the stems is in case they meaning the end user, whoever it is, the production company doing the TV show or the film or the commercial, it's so that they can create their own mixes and masters with your raw material. That's what the stems are for. So, I hope that clarifies everything. If you have any questions, write to me. Because I pop these things out, from week to week, day to day. Things can change, and companies are not the same. So that's one thing to know. But if you're mixing the way that I've shown you, so that you're mixing into stem files, even if they don't ask for it, somebody might take that track. Let's say that you get a year contract with somebody and they don't do anything with your track. They actually accept it, they don't do anything, and now you shop it to somebody else, and that's a major motion picture, and they ask for stems all of a sudden. And you go back in, boom, you got them, and you're ready to go. And finally, I'll end with this real life story that just happened, and this should illustrate why it is important to even understand stem files or make them at all. I have a new student from Russia. I do Skype sessions with remote computer technology, and I show people how to mix. And he's very new to all of this. Never got anything licensed. He's a good home studio producer engineer. He needed some work, and we started to improve his mixes, and he made some rapid progress. As I said, he's a newer student. So last week I said to him, when you send out, because he was getting rejects, left, right, and center. I said, the next submission that you send in your email, put a link to a download where they could get your stems. And we went over how to make his stems, and he made his stems. I said, put a link in there and mention in your email to the supervisor or publisher, say, oh, by the way, if you would like my stem files, they're available at this link. And then he listed what the stems were. So he did. He sent that out in the next email. He wrote me back a couple days ago, and he was so excited, and I was very proud. He got an 8-song exclusive publishing deal. And here's a very key thing about this stem file thing. They may or may not even ask him for those stem files. But when they saw it on the email, they immediately get the impression, hey, here's a guy that's professional. He's probably done this before, and he didn't. He never had anything placed before. But when they see that, they're like, okay. Because more and more in the industry, the supervisors and publishers themselves are being asked by the tech people, the editors, and those putting together these productions, they're being asked more and more and more for stem files. So you're going to put yourself at the head of the class, in front of the line. You're going to look professional. You can separate yourself out from all this competition that's out there and be ready with high quality stems that even if they're not asked for, just by presenting that to someone, it puts your best face forward. It puts your odds in the best possible percentage of getting an actual licensing deal. So good luck, and you'll be getting some actual homework on these stem files when you get your stem files sent to you. So write to me at gary@learnaudioengineering.net. Send me an email now asking for the stem files. I'm going to send them to you, and you're going to get an actual several homework assignments along with those stem files. So good luck.